Could you just first tell us what the mood is like among your members in the foreign business community after what has been a year and a half of quite strict COVID restrictions here in the city?
Yeah, good morning, Yvonne. Well, in the community, the mood is as we described in our open letter to the chief executive earlier, and it is desperate. We're doing this for 2 years, and Hong Kong is in a sandwich position here, obviously between the mainland China and the rest of the world. And that was always Hong Kong's function. And we see this function, which is super important to our business community, not enabled right now for almost 2 years. And that leads to severe pressure on businesses doing business in and out of Hong Kong, obviously.
Yeah, just to join in on our conversation with Edward Yao earlier, he mentioned that you guys have frequent conversations. He says he calls you a friend. He said, I fully appreciate the difficulties, especially for those companies who use Hong Kong as a base for the entire region. What are those conversations like, Frederik, at the moment? Do you think that they are listening to your concerns?
Well, Edward Yao is certainly listening to our concerns. I think the government in general is very aware of our concerns. We have written numerous letters, and the recent letter was the first time we were feeling the urge to write an open letter to the government, as we thought it's not so much the business side of the government not reacting to what we're saying. It's more like we feel the health part of the government is not so receptive to our comments, and we see that general we have a conflict between business interests and the current zero COVID strategy the Hong Kong government is following, next to obviously the Chinese government and two other governments in the world.
Do you think that they are listening to foreign companies and their concerns right now, Frederik, given the fact that you just heard that clip from Yao himself saying that the priority right now is reopening with the border with China? And it seems like their focus is more on their travel ties with the mainland right now. What do you say to that?
We get mixed messages. Certainly for our business community, opening the border to China is one very important step. Opening any border for a start would be an important step. And opening any border for Hong Kong based on a zero COVID strategy would impose a higher risk of getting infections into Hong Kong. This is why we're calling for a change of strategy. We have to learn to live with the virus, no matter what border we're opening. And obviously, China is much more, mainland China is much more as well on a zero COVID strategy. But again, if you open a border, the virus doesn't really care about any borders anyways. So we see the urge to revisit the zero COVID strategy, and that we learn to live with COVID also as a virus is mutating as we speak, and vaccines seem to be working quite well in almost everywhere in the world. So we think focusing on vaccination, testing is the way forward to open the borders, and then we need to learn to live with the virus as we did learn living with other viruses in the past as well.
But Frederik, I have to look at a big hub like Singapore, and when it comes to vaccinations, they're doing much better than Hong Kong, right? We're talking about close to 80%, if not 80%, of the population there has gone inoculated now. Hong Kong, though, we're not seeing the same kind of measures. Is there some, I guess, merit in keeping a COVID zero strategy if, in fact, these vaccinations stay low?
Well, I can't judge on the motives why some parts of the population in Hong Kong are not so eager to get vaccinated. I only sense that there's a lot of misinformation about what vaccinations do, how safe vaccinations are. But to be honest, we're running the biggest study probably ever conducted about vaccinations globally as we speak. It seems that vaccination side effects are pretty much limited as to what health experts around the world say. So I would consider personally vaccines being safe, and we should be vaccinated. And particularly the vulnerable part of the population in Hong Kong should see the need to get vaccinated. At the moment, I think the government does everything possible, and going to a very large extent, even putting families with children into the quarantine facility, the government quarantine facility in Penny Bay for 3 weeks, only because there have been somewhat a contact with a COVID case in Hong Kong. So I think some of the measures to protect the overall populations are way out of proportion. And I don't want, frankly, I don't want to have my kids and myself 3 weeks, although being tested negative for multiple times, even after the incubation period of which seems to be 7 days, particularly with the Delta variant. It's a situation where I think the measures being taken are not in proportion to the problem, and we are still simply asking to revisit the strategy Hong Kong has taken, because we are in the middle between the mainland China. We're a gateway to China and to the world. We're a financial hub, we're a trading hub, and all those functions we can't properly execute right now as a business community.